Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden, and I'll be your mindset coach this evening. And today we're going to be having a special guest, Terri Messenger. And she is going to be a coach, therapist, and she's going to be able to help you get to a new place in your life. So if you find that you're stuck, if that you're having a hard time with moving ahead, you're allowing complacency to dictate the terms of your life, then maybe a coach is exactly what you need. And I pride myself in going out and finding wonderful coaches that I can share with you. So you can make the choice. You can work with so many of the coaches I've interviewed. And from there, you can say, well, this coach resonates with me. Because Terri and I had a wonderful conversation, and we did talk about finding the right coach, because there's so many coaches in the world. And you can even go see one of the greats. You can go see Tony Robbins right now and have a workshop, walk across the fire, the hot coals, and it might not be for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that self-help doesn't work for you. It just means you haven't found the person who's going to spark that drive in you. And I'll tell you a story. This is back when I was a swim coach. And a mother had came in and she went to all these different swim schools. And she went to one swim school, this swim school. She probably went to 5 different swim schools before she came to me. And when she came to me, she was upset. For some reason, the boys must have been causing her a headache that day. But she said, Michael, this is it. She goes, I've been to this swim school, that swim school, and I'm not going to try anymore. And if they don't learn how to swim now, they're not going to learn how to swim, because I'm not going to care anymore. Because she did everything she could, right? She went to all these different schools and to try to get them to swim. But no one was able to do it. And I looked at the mom and I was like, what's the problem here? There has to be an issue. Why are other instructors not able to figure out how to teach these boys how to swim? Swimming is not necessarily a hard thing to teach. But long story short, I found out the boys had a fear of water. They had a fear of the deep end. And no matter what, they could have been in the shallow end. They could have been holding on. They could have been just by the side of the pool. They were afraid of the deep end. And so we did have to work on that fear. And we did. And I got them swimming. Long story short, right? So it's going to take a different person sometimes to help you get past your fears and your goals. And again, I find coaches like Terri Messenger who are going to be able to help elevate you. So if you feel stuck, if you feel like you have more to give, why not give it a shot? Shoot her an email, go to her website, terrimessenger.com. And after the interview, of course, you can make that choice. And you don't necessarily have to work with me, right? Because what I do is I bring coaches to you. And I can say, hey, if I'm not your cup of tea, maybe she is. Maybe one of the other coaches I have interviewed, they are. So the balance, what I'm looking for is I'm trying to change the world. And I have a certain number. I'm not going to say it, 25% of the world population. That's a lot of people, right? It's going to be about 2 billion people. And I know I can't do it by myself. So that means I need other wonderful coaches. And if I can have other coaches onto the podcast, onto the platform that you can listen to, that you can understand, and that maybe you can resonate with, then I can start to make an impact by sharing people who are going to help you. And it's not about the money. It's not about the accreditation, because I understand I'm going to be equipped with what I need. I have an abundance type of mindset, and so should you. So if you're looking to grow and you're looking for better in your life, stay tuned. And here we go with Terri Messenger. Welcome, Terri Messenger. Welcome to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Thanks, Michael. It's Australia Day over here. So what can I say? I'm in my element.
Very good. And how's the weather over there right now?
We are in a heat wave. So we've had like 40-degree days. It's nothing for running for 3 days at a time since Christmas.
Oh, wow. Here is going to be a little bit cooler than that. I think we're operating, this is Fahrenheit, so around 40, 50 degrees. So a little bit cooler than where you are, but that's summer for you, right?
Absolutely. I love summer. I love summer. It's great, but it's very hot. It's a
Yeah.
scorcher.
So I know what you do. I read all about you, went to your website, LinkedIn page, and can you tell everyone what you do?
Okay, so I would say that I'm a world-class creator
Mhm.
of modalities that come from neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, EFT, Michael. So, I mean, it all began, obviously as a practitioner,
Mhm.
but I moved into the space of training people and then the space of creating my own modalities when my clients were getting results and saying, oh my gosh, you've got to show us how you do this.
Okay, so do you primarily work with coaches or do you have clients who come and say, hey, I have this problem. Can you help me?
Well, I don't know how much you know about like hypnosis, but generally speaking, if people know you're a hypnotherapist, they go, oh, she's going to put us to sleep and I'm going to go in this weird trance and then I'm going to act like a chicken, right?
Yeah.
Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. I sort of did a very, how would you put it, credible space of hypnosis where Milton Erickson is the school of thought that I come from.
Hmm.
And it's more waking hypnosis, right? So, as far as the clients that I would attract, because it's so renowned for breaking bad habits, squashing limiting beliefs, helping people to move forward. I was dealing with a lot of trauma, a lot of addiction. This is where it all began. So I was finding that, behind bricks and mortar, I would have all kinds of different people coming along. But when I hit the online space, which was only in 2017, that's when I realized, oh, hang on a minute, I need to choose a niche, right?
Hmm.
And that's when I had to really do a bit of an observation. And what I noticed is that people were, like a natural affinity that they were quite highly ambitious.
Hmm.
I mean, whether they were a musician or whether they were a personal trainer or a teacher, psychologist, counselors, they had traits that were very ambitious, very much leading people. And they also had something else in common, and that is that they led a life of trauma, especially from their childhood. So a lot of the breaking of, the culture, things that go on, a lot of the things that happen with, even just the way they're brought up, what they believe, and the stories they learnt and what they tell themselves. So predominantly what I saw is people like myself, very ambitious, very passionate, very much wanting to be someone in the world. And as you probably know yourself, Michael, when someone really wants to make a stand for something in the world and they are really good at what they do, it generally comes from, this authentic experience that they've had in their own life.
Wow, that's so much information and so powerful. And kudos to you for doing such an amazing type of work with people and helping them get over their limiting beliefs or traumas, who they were, who they developed when they were younger. And one of the questions I want to ask you is, do people come to you with traumas more so than they just want to have a change in their life? Like, have they had experienced some type of trauma and they say, Terri, I'm having this trauma, it just happened to me and I want to get over it? Do you find that you have more clients like that than you have clients who say, you know what, I want to change my life a little bit. Everything's pretty good. And I'm just looking for a little bit of change, not too much. Do you see yourself helping clients with more traumas than people who are already healed and good to go?
Originally, that was very, very, very much the case. People were destitute. I would have people that were in extremely high roles, like they were, state managers and things like that. And then they suddenly had something that triggered them into this deep depression. And it did always it stemmed from the trauma, right? So that was very much what I was I guess, known for, and, you know, what the modalities were really breaking through and making a massive difference. What I'm finding these days, Michael, and you would understand this, is that in the online space, people are going, well, something is holding them back. They're not breaking through in their finance, or they're not making headway in what they want. And what we're doing is we are discovering that it all comes back from there. So even though many people now will come to me as coaches, as leaders, as teachers, and they want to learn the modalities, they want to learn how, you know, because I've actually founded the Master Key, and I don't know whether you looked at that on my website.
I'm not too familiar with it.
Yeah. Can I just quickly go through that?
Of course, please.
Yeah. Okay. So the Master Key system was something that I guess designed after I moved through clinic, after we sold, and then I came online and got a very rude awakening about the fact that it's so different. It's people think, oh, this is going to be a walk in the park. I think if they've never done anything much before, they might find that. But when you are in a space where I was, and, you know, very, very much referred and had a huge following, it was a shock to come online and recognize you've got to go whoosh, and you've got to kind of like really, you know, double down on your niche until you become like Gary Vee, of course, or Anthony Robbins, or someone quite profound like that, you know. So the Master Key was where I had to look at, well, what's happening here? It's like what they talk about with the conscious competency. You know, there's things that we know, and there's things that we don't know that we don't know, and there's things that we don't even know that exist that we ought to know, but we don't even know that they exist to know what that is. If that makes sense, it's a bit of a strange irony, but I sort of had to look at my conscious competency and go, okay, now what's going on here? So the number one was Master Key was health. People's health was always impacted in one way or the other if they weren't living a really fulfilled life. And what I call a fulfilled life is when you are really tapped in, tuned in, turned on by your God-given calling. Like, I, you know, heard some of your story, which is so exciting, and I can see big things happening here. But that story about finding your calling, you know, knowing there's something so much more and following it. So I discovered that people, when they were living according to their God-given gift, if you like, or tapping into their zone of genius, they came to life. Even if they weren't, you know, operating in exactly the field of their dreams, that will eventually happen, because when a person is not functioning on all four cylinders, everything suffers. So if we talk about it in the negative, the health, whether that is mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. So Master Key number one is really bringing up that multi-million-dollar energy and that really good health. And, you know, there's so much that the brain and the nervous system knows about healing at a cellular level. So to me, that's just so powerful. Two is the next thing, right? Relationships. You'll understand this is why it was so hard for me to niche down. So the relationships of usually people would come because they were being impacted. They weren't getting enough clients. They kept running patterns where their relationships, they would attract the same partner, or it was showing up in their life. But life is about relationships anyway, right? So Master Key 2 is about breaking the past wounds of what has been indoctrinated, if you like, and really healing that so that you can hold a different presence, so you can hold a different manifestation and call that in. Master Key 3, interestingly enough, is about your wealth. It's your financial blueprint. And, you know, this comes right back deep into the cultural belief systems. And it really is around a person's self-worth, what they are telling themselves, what their parents fed to them. So that's a really big key. And when people can identify that, it becomes a very vital key, no pun intended. So that is the 3. The 4th one is the zone of genius. And I think I've kind of alluded a lot on that. And that's about tapping into it. And just incidentally, that correlates back to the zone of genius of, who I call in. Generally, people's story, and this is my motto, right, become their crown of glory. So they almost, it's like the very thing that wounded them, and that they had that moment where they said, right, I am not doing this anymore. They draw a line in the sand and they say, no more, right? No deal. Yeah. And in that moment, when they break through, when they're in the right space to be able to come into their own, that's where the zone of genius comes from. And then the why and all those elements. So sorry, I went on about that one a bit. And number 5, which I won't go on about because it's a whole different story, is for the league, where there's a lot of coaches out there and they're really battling to do all of the things, but especially the real magical ones, the ones that are really good at what they do. They don't want to be doing all the technology. They don't want to do all the marketing. They don't want to do all of so that key number 5, launch your legacy.
Yeah. So we have health, then we go into relationships, then we go into monetary types / self-worth. Then we have the crown of genius, and then we have launching the legacy are going to be the 5 master keys, correct?
That's amazing. Yes.
So now we have all of those, and if we can, just talking about the mindset, when you put all of those together, how powerful will a person become if they can master all those 5 keys?
How powerful will a person become if they can master all those 5 keys? Woo! Okay, so one might be going, that's just that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, high energy. Let's get it done.
It just wow. I mean, you can only say, look. Back in the olden days when I first began in clinic, and people might have just been having a nice little humble job behind the scenes and living a nice little average, comfortable, miserable life. Mm-hmm. Once they were seeing me, and I didn't plan this. I wasn't saying, I've got 5 master keys. This is what my observation was, right? So this is more built on case studies. And so I would look at them, and then they'd come in to see me, and it would be about the 3rd session. And if I had a penny for every single person that said this, maybe $1 these days, but you're never going to believe this, Terri. Mm-hmm. Never going to believe this, because they're about to tell me something profound, but it's something that they think that I have no idea about. And usually it's based on a decision. And it's usually a massive one. Mm. In some cases, I almost give a disclaimer. Some people walk away from relationships because they've been in a battlefield for so long, and all of a sudden they've got up, and they never even told me about it sometimes. So it's like they found their voice. They found their mojo. And then everything began. And then because everything began, it's like they move this great big fog in their head. Now, did I go, right, we're going to deal with Master Key 1. Now we're going to do with 10. No, that's not the scientific formula. The actual science, that what I've discovered that really is the big deciphering factor is to usually, if a person's doing it hard, right? If there's something that's really stuck and blocked and holding them back, they're either personally developed and doing quite well, but there's things that they're like this. Do you know what I mean? They're not flying. or if they're absolutely down and out and they know they can function so much better, then we will pinpoint, and they don't necessarily know which one it is. In fact, so many people will come to me because they thought they wanted to shred their excess baggage, their kilos. They wanted to, get their body into shape, right? Because personal trainers are huge that I've actually worked with. But what we found out is that way back when they were molested, something happened to them in their childhood where they developed this comfort. And I'm not saying that's not the same for everyone. Everyone's got a different, reason for their habit, their sabotage, and what they do. But when you really get to the root cause of what you're dealing with, it's not necessarily what your client tells you, right? What they tell you is usually more of a symptom. It's more they're putting up with this, and this. But when you're really good at what you do, which I'll own what I do here, right? I've been around in this for a very, very long time, not as long as Anthony Robbins, but long enough that I would take them right back, and you pull that initial plug out that happened to them. It doesn't necessarily have to be a major crisis trauma either. Just in that child's mind, it may have been. But you pull it out, it's like a sink. It's like the water draining out of the sink, right? And then it has a domino effect, and then they can begin the recoding process.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a beautiful way to put it. How I typically just see it is I look for the answer behind all your fluff, right? Because you're telling me everything, what's going on. And you might be dancing around the real reason of why you're procrastinating or why you're remaining complacent. And as soon as I say, well, this is the reason, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. And it's almost like an awakening for them. They're like, I can't believe that it was that simple. And when they start coaching with me, they always, after the first session, they go, wow, this was better than I thought, because they are under the premise of like, this person might not be able to help me. They are just going to listen to me and then, say, well, cheer up and everything is going to be okay. But when you really listen to a person and you have all of the goodwill to help them, you're going to listen intently and you're going to be able to see what is really the reason. And you said something so great in the development of someone. It can happen when they're young. It can happen when they're a little bit older. It's going to be that hiccup in their life that just kind of tied the knot, and it's just stopping them from, making the thread pull through to create something beautiful. As coaches, what I do is I go in and we'll get rid of that knot, right? So they can continue to sow their dreams in their future. So it's just a process of doing that. And I do it a little bit different, but it's actually the same thing. It's just different terminology. So I work on the development stage, looking at the environment and behavior. And then it's a whole pyramid, and it goes up to skills and capabilities, values and beliefs. And then the top part is identity. So it's going to be a 5 pyramid type of thing. Also, so it's like the 5 pyramid. So not the 5 keys, but it's still talking about how we get people from where they are to where they want to be. And I always find it interesting, and I love asking this question to coaches, is we can't force someone to be successful, right? We can't force someone to be happy. We can't force someone to cheer up if they are feeling down and out, right? They have to go through that process, that journey themselves. But what would you say to someone who's on the borderline, right? They are thinking about getting a coach or thinking about reaching out to you, and they're just at that tip and they just are not 100% certain yet. And they say, I'm going to email Terri, I'm going to message her today, and they procrastinate, right? They just allow complacency to take over and they don't take action. What would you say to those type of people?
Well, it depends on, if they've done their homework, they know what they want. I believe that it's going to come down to a lot of trust and a lot of faith. The work that we do, Michael, is profound. And when you get the right person that can work with you and that can help you, you'll never look back, because it'll be like, you know, people say it's like living a whole life in one session. You can do so much. So you could balk, you can procrastinate, you can hold yourself back because there's a lot of, you know, negative experiences out there. You know, come on, let's face it, right? People are paying for all sorts of different, you know, elements, and they're feeling like they can't go any further. Mm-hmm. Well, I say that when you listen to your gut, right? Listen to your gut. And if you're wanting to make the change, get someone who knows what they're doing with the subconscious mind. And the reason I say hire someone who is, you know, especially if you've got limiting beliefs that are so stuck, you've got trauma that is, you know, there and triggering all the time, and you've got relationships that are coming back to haunt you, I would suggest that you do your homework, you really find a person that knows what they're doing with the subconscious. They've obviously got that, you know, that testimonial to show that they have been able to help people. And of course, when you get that competent person, you will never, ever look back. You know, someone like Michael, someone who knows what they're doing. You don't have to dance around. I mean, a lot of people like to talk, and you would know that, as I'm doing right now, Michael. And, you know, so many people like to tell you what their story is. But I've actually said to people, can you humor me here? Trust yourself, because if you get lost in your story, you're just playing the same old record. You know, what's above at that super conscious level is what is well above any person. So you can even take people like us out of the equation here. Because when someone knows how to guide that super consciousness and be able to take you back so that you can pull the thread and you can completely, it's like letting down a hem of a dress. The whole thing drops. You can then re-sew that beautiful new thread through your life and recode it, as I would say. So find that person that you know can do that, because you will never, ever look back.
Yeah. And then resonating with someone is so powerful, because then you trust them. You're going to put faith in them. And I always tell people that in order to do something, you have to believe. And the belief doesn't have to come from themselves, right? It can come from the coach. I can believe in someone if they're having a hard time believing in themselves. Similar to the quote Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you are correct. But what I have found is that clients will come to me and they will have a big dream, grandiose dream, and it's huge, scary, right? And they are always asking me, like, do you think this is a good thing? Do you think this is something I can attain? And I said, yeah, it's very possible. And we work on it and we slowly get there. And when they finally reach it, they come to a realization like, wow, I did this. But in the beginning, I didn't believe in myself. So yes, they can believe in themselves initially, but if they have someone believing in them, that's also powerful. And similar to how, like, if you're married and you have a partner that's also supportive of you, whatever you're doing, and there's going to be hard days, right? Some days you're so stressed out. Maybe something didn't go your way exactly, and you use them as a support pillar, right? You don't look for them for happiness in the sense they embellish that, but they are your support pillar. They encourage you. And then, of course, coaches can also do the same thing. And to find someone that you resonate with, someone who speaks your language per se, when you speak with them, everything feels like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That feels good to me. It's not like, oh, I got to listen to this person again. And not everyone is going to like what I do, how I teach. And that's fine, because I know there's so many other wonderful coaches out there. And Terri, again, you're a wonderful coach, and I encourage anyone to reach out to her and to see if she is a wonderful fit, if, you resonate with her. What I have found is even the greats like Anthony Robbins, There's going to be people who go to his live events and they say it wasn't for me, but it doesn't mean he's a bad coach. It's just that the resonation was off. But then they can go to someone like Zig Ziglar and they say he was exactly what I needed. And or Mel Robbins, it's another one. There's so many coaches, so many people who are out there who are helping people get to a better place. So there's so many coaches. And what I do with coaching in session is bring like-minded coaches on so people can find them, because it's going to be difficult to find a coach if you just typically go to Google or any search engine, because you're going to get the top people. You're going to get like your Tony Robbins, your Zig Ziglar, your Les Browns. And there's nothing wrong with those people. I will say that they're amazing people. They have so much to teach. But again, those are three people, right? So if they're taking up the top space in your search engine, they might not be the people who are going to help you get out of that rut. And yes, they have the accreditation of being successful, and they have all the motivational videos, and they have all these seminars and workshops that you can go to, read books, but you can go to Terri's website and you can find the same thing. You can go to my website, revenconcepts.com. You can find the same thing. There's so much resources to help people, help you to get to a better place. And what I want to ask you next, Terri, is what does the process look like for someone who starts working with you? For me, we typically start how they're feeling, right? Just tell me how you're feeling and we go from there. What does your process look like?
Okay, so to kick off a session with, basically when I'm sitting down with them, so they've actually hired me. Is that like where the question comes from?
Yes. So they went, looked at your website, loved you, and now they're working with you.
Okay, so it's basically the session. So if I had a magic wand, and I mean, I say lots of things, but I usually say something crazy. And this session meant for you today that you were going to change something for the better. What would it be? And the answer is usually, I want to quit smoking, or I want to lose weight, or I want to stop being so stressed, or I want to, stop feeling like I'm always meeting the wrong person and feeling treated this way. I went, easy, I can do that. So you want to start smoking, you want to gain weight, you want to be stressed out, and you want to keep meeting the wrong people. And I love it because it's a instant pattern interruption, right? And they go, what? And believe me, my pattern interruptions have blown people's socks off. And it's one of the things Anthony Robbins does. But the reason I do come that with justification is that I'm educating people, because the question that I ask them is, what do you want? Not what do you not want? And people will always tell you what they don't want.
Yeah, no, I always tell people understanding what you don't want and what you want are the same importance, right? You have to understand what you don't want and then understand what you want too, because people are going to say, well, I don't want this in my life. I don't want that in my life. And then they don't focus on, well, what do you want? So they're worried about the negative, what they don't want, and then they continue to have it. And then they wonder why they still have it. And it's interesting that people keep going down that road. It's kind of like going in a circle or like being in a rat race. They're like, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. Well, then what do you do? And I find that a lot with happiness. People say, I want this in order to be happy. And it could be a new iPhone, for example. And they say, once I get my new iPhone, I'm going to be happy. Now they get their new iPhone and they're elated. They had this new iPhone. They're $1,500 in the negative, but they have this phone, right? It's supposed to make them happy, right? They can take wonderful pictures. And they have this phone for a few months. And then Apple says, you know what, guys, we just tricked you. We're going to have a new phone released 3 months later after you just purchased this phone. Now we have these people going after, well, now my phone is 3 months old. It's not the newest anymore. I don't like this phone anymore. I want something new. So they were focusing on what they thought they wanted, but they were fooled, because then when something else came out, now they want that. What is that conundrum, right? Why do people keep going after the new thing, the shiny thing, the trendy thing, and not go after looking at what they want from the inside? And there's some people who do. I'm not saying it's everyone in the world, but when we do that, typically we're so focused on society, the world's keeping up with the Joneses, that we're not really looking on who we are on the inside, who we are becoming. and then working on ourselves.
Absolutely. So true. Because, we are not our emotions, right? We are not, you are not your stuck feelings. You are not your depression. You are not your anger. But you are your habits. You are as a result of your habits. That is the 101 thing. So, really releasing and then becoming that person that you want to be through. And I'm not talking about a big, long list either. These are rituals that people can create in the morning that can be 20 minutes long and just setting standards for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us some examples of some rituals or some standards we can do in the morning?
Sure. At the moment, I am currently running a program for high ambitious people who really want to break through that upper ceiling. So we call it the Maverick Formula. Now, even though it is my own acronym, right? Mm-hmm. It is the science of what I'm teaching doesn't belong to me, unfortunately. I have learnt it from great people that have rebuilt themselves from the ground up. And, even people that have had strokes that lost the ability to walk and talk, right? They rebuilt themselves. If you look at The Morning Miracle, that book, The Morning Miracle, holds the Maverick formula. I created the Maverick because it really spells out, it's, people that I attract, for starters. And, M is for meditation. A is for affirmations. V is for vision. E is for exercise. R is for reading. I is for ink, that is journaling. C is for concentrating on one thing at a time each day. Rather than big long lists, say, what am I going to do today that's going to get me to where I want to be? And because they only ask one thing and they're only writing down one thing, there's something very psychological that creates that, wow, I just did that. And because it happens to be quite relevant, it inspires them to carry on from there. And then K, because Maverick is spelt with a K, so my husband added the K onto it, which stands for KISS. Keep it simple, savvy. Yeah.
No, that's a wonderful method. And it's so simple that a small change in the morning can start to change your whole life. And people fail to understand the power of the morning and the power of the evening. What tends to happen is people get so bogged down with life. They are going to work a 9 to 5 typically. And when they come home, they have the perfect excuse. I'm not going to eat well. I'm not going to be ambitious. I'm not going to read a book. I'm not going to journal. I'm not going to meet with a coach. I'm just going to allow myself to find a little hole that I can recover in after the days of stress. I mean, we're living in a stressful world right now. And if you watch the news, you turn it on, stress automatically hits you. How can someone not be impacted by all this stress besides not turning on the TV, besides not looking out on site or looking at social media and seeing all the negative things that are happening in the world? How can they start to be more positive and start to think that the life that they're living doesn't have to be that if they want to change it?
Wow, you asked some incredible questions. I love it. So for starters, I believe you do need to set standards and you do need to set your own, non-negotiables of what you will and what you will not allow into your life. And, I guess it's easy for me to say, Michael, because I know what to do. And I know you would know what to do as well when I tell you this. But so many of our, I guess it's the 101 modalities that we learn, especially like from neuro-linguistic programming. It's, the perceptual positioning, being able to sort of step out, step into another set of eyes, look at it, more rationally. The creation of association, dissociation, knowing when, really the best life, the best success, the best, of what you can possibly achieve is going to be held in your presence, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be existing from your omnipotent presence. And the more present you are, the greater it is. But what about if you're not feeling great? What happens if, like what you just said, you're stressed out, you're worried about what's going on in the world? Apart from having your own standards and having these kind of, values that you set for yourself, I would, this is what I do. I learn to actually come back to my own self, to the heart and soul of who I am. And if I'm not feeling good, there's usually a couple of things happening. Number one, I'm either thinking about the future and, oh my gosh, what's going to happen here? And I'm not living back here in this space of now. Or I'm back over here. I'm in the past and I'm nursing and rehearsing something. So I think the awareness, right? The awareness of being able to even know that, where am I living? Is this the future? Is this the past? That in itself is powerful. So by actually just bringing your awareness back to yourself, because obviously I'm talking to people as if they're not, a qualified coach that will know how powerful and the modalities that we can do to actually combat this. But that would probably be some of the kind of elements that I would definitely recommend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely being aware of your time and how you're thinking is going to be one of the first steps, right? Because we have to understand, why are we feeling stressed? Like, where's the stress coming from? It's not going to just come up when you wake up out in the morning, right? Maybe you wake up in the morning and you have a bad habit of picking up your smartphone. And now you're picking up your smartphone, going on to the news network channel, and you're seeing all this negativity. And now you're like, today is going to be a rough day because of the news. Just that simple thing. If we took away the news, then we can say, well, how do we really feel? Are you at 50%? Are you at 100%? Whatever level you are. And it's okay if you're not at 100% every day. We can always get there, right? We figure out what is causing you to operate at a lower efficiency. So if you're not eating well, for example, if you're staying up too late, and then all of those reasons are going to compound to you waking up either restful or tired and sluggish. And the habit of hitting the snooze button is another thing, right? It just creates procrastination, and it sets our day up for more procrastination. Well, I'm going to hit the snooze button. I'm going to get 15 more minutes of sleep. And if you fall asleep and you fall into a REM sleep and you interrupt it, you're going to be sluggish for the next 45 minutes, right? There's all of these different types of sciences that happen in the body that typically people just don't realize is happening. And they wake up, and in the last minute, they rush out of bed. The anxiety is kicking in. I'm going to be late for work. And now, if they're late for work, maybe they've been late for some time, they're going to get fired. Maybe it could be a whole plethora of problems that are running through their mind. But if we take the road that is right there for us initially, instead of saying, I'll do it later, that's going to be more powerful in your growth than if you wait. And I always tell people, yeah, of course you can wait to get a coach. You can find the perfect time, but in life, there's no perfect time. There's this moment, there's now. And if you're not operating at 100% efficiency, seek out Terri, seek out myself, seek out other wonderful coaches. And I always tell people to find someone, again, that you're going to resonate with, someone you're going to be able to learn from and grow from and trust. Because when you have that, then you're going to feel like that stress level that you had is going down because you have someone that you can trust, someone you can confide in. And that is another important thing, that you have someone that you can speak with openly. They're not going to be judgmental. They're going to hear you out, listen to you, and offer sound advice. And it's not in the sense of being malicious either, because if I have a client, I'm going to tell them what's going to be in their best interest. And I'm not going to say, well, you're being lazy because you are eating terribly. No, let's say, well, let's figure out your eating habits. And the way we do it is a gentle approach, in the sense of, let's do this together. Because when you have someone pushing you in the sense of not not forcefully, but together. Let's go together. You gently take their hand and you say, let's go to a better future. Let's go to a better life. Let's make you a better person. That's so powerful for that individual that's working with a coach, therapist. They're going to say, yes, let's go. And I'm going to be more inclined to becoming a better person. And, just from speaking with you, wonderful, wonderful coach. And it seems like your clients are in wonderful hands. Let's tell people where they can find you.
Okay, so terrimessenger.com, and excuse me that it's my husband, Dr. Reven Messenger, you see there. Terri, spelt with an ITRRI, so terrimessenger.com. And you can also look me up on Facebook, Terri Messenger Transformation Queen.
Okay, and a final leaving response you would like to tell people.
Okay, so I believe, and this came from something you just said, actually. So just on the spot, off the cuff, I would say, when you're looking at managing those days when you're feeling stressed or you're feeling like you just don't want to go on, like Michael has said, how you start the day can have a snowball effect. But when you stop and you become aware, and what I picked up in what you were just saying before, it's like if people get stuck in traffic and they're very frustrated about they've got to get somewhere on time, there ain't no amount of stress that can change it, right? Mm-hmm. There is no amount of anything that you may be feeling against, your empowered feeling. So if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling any of those things, just stop and become aware. And as you become aware, don't try and run away from it or try and cover it up. Like Anthony Robbins says, if you got weeds in the garden, no point saying, I've got beautiful bowling green lawns. There ain't no weeds. You got to face up to those weeds. Yeah. But embrace it and embody it and accept it. Because being in traffic is a classic of that, right? You can be doing this while you're in traffic, but this is going to set yourself up for an energetic big fall. So when you go, what could this mean? What could it mean right now that I am here, I'm stuck in this position, I feel the way that I do? What else could it mean? And it might be that you need to talk to God. It may be that you are having a quiet time and that if you had have been ahead and on time, something else was going to happen. And this was actually a blessing in disguise. So I say, really embody where you are and be aware of it, accept it, and then learn from it and release and let it go.
Yeah. Finding peace, finding mindfulness, finding who you are at this moment is going to be essential for relieving that stress in that moment. It comes up and it shows its face. And before it seeks its fangs inside of you, you just say, no, not right now. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on where I am right now, where I'm going to be. And being filled with stress and anxiety is not going to help me. And that's a powerful message. And if anyone is willing to get out of their habits and want to reach for more in their life, because complacency is going to be one of those things that many people don't even realize that they're in until they realize that they don't have much. And they say, wow, I don't have much and I'm not happy with what I have. So they want to make a change. And it could be a trauma that sparks it. It can be just a self-realization that you're meant for more in your life. But whatever happens, whatever occurs, there's going to be someone like Terri who can help you along to find where you need to be. And if you feel stuck, if you feel like you don't have a way out, I guarantee you there's a way out. Head over to terrimessenger.com. It doesn't matter the coach you go for, but find someone who's going to work with your personality. And I can tell you, just from speaking with Terri in this short podcast, a wonderful person, a wonderful coach, anyone will be happy anyone is going to be satisfied with her in the corner.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on Coaching in Session. And we will, of course, be in touch. I loved what you talked about, and I would love to have you back on another time.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right. Cheers.